Misclick.
Buried treasure is by far the most consistent source of all materials in the overworld, so top speedrunners primarily reset to find these chests. Similar to other strategies in the game, we use the pie chart to find the buried treasure, or more specifically, the chunk that the treasure chest is in. The information we get from the pie chart is that there's some sort of block entity in one of the chunks we can currently see on our screen. Block entities include chests, spawners, beds, and more, but during the mapless split, we're looking for the chest spike.
We already saw this.
Similar to all spikes, the spike we get from the chest can vary a bit depending on if
We already watched this.
Let's discuss why so many people aren't given the grace of the true faith and are not inclined to the true positions. In John chapter 5, Jesus says to the Jews who didn't believe in him, quote, "How can you believe when you receive glory from one another and do not seek the glory that comes from the only God?" End quote. John 5:44. Jesus reveals that a primary reason people are not given the grace of the true faith is that they are seeking glory or approval or respect from other men, rather than from God. This principle applies across the board, to unbelievers and heretics of every kind, and to multitudes of those who claim to be Catholic and even quote traditional Catholics, but aren't truly Catholic because they obstinately adhere to false positions. Those people are too concerned about what other people think, respect, and approve, rather than being focused solely on what is true in God's sight and what is pleasing to Him. Their focus is too much on the horizontal, if you will, rather than on the vertical. They are seeking refuge with others, rather than with God. If they were focused solely or sufficiently on what is true and right in God's sight, regardless of how others react, they would then receive the grace to see the truth. However, conflicts, disrespect, lies, mockery, and hatred would also come their way from many people who otherwise would not react in that way toward them. Matthew 10:25, "If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more those of his household?" Galatians 1:10, "For am I now seeking the approval of men or of God? Or am I trying to please men? If I yet pleased men, I would not be a servant of Christ." 2 Timothy 3:12, "Indeed, all who desire to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted." John 15:18-19, "If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." The importance of this point should not be underestimated. If you embrace and stand for God's truth, irrespective of what others say, you will be opposed, you will be hated, you will be disrespected, lied about, and mocked by people who would not otherwise react in that way toward you. That's what's going to happen, and it's especially applicable today during the Great Apostasy, the period to which Jesus referred when he said, "When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" Luke 18:8. This doesn't mean that one should seek to be combative for the sake of being combative, but that embracing and professing the full truth without compromise will engender the aforementioned reactions in evil people on a smaller or larger scale depending upon your state in life. Now, sometimes a person embraces the true positions but starts to listen to others who have scorn or disrespect for those who adhere to them. If a person cares too much about that reaction, God will pull grace from that person, and that person's conviction will be weakened, perhaps even to the point of losing the faith. That's why, generally speaking, you should not continue dialoguing with those who pertinaciously reject or attack the truth or live in a sinful fashion. You should evangelize and make an effort to convert them. But if they are clearly stubborn in their rejection of the truth, and they are not interested in changing, you should move on. You shouldn't hang out with them in order to hear their thoughts, unless some special purpose of study or investigation calls for it. Avoid the heretic after the second admonition, Titus 3:10. When weaker people continue to hang around and listen to such unbelievers or heretics, they often become tainted, weakened, or corrupted altogether. Sometimes a true believer loses faith because he or she was too concerned about the reaction, scorn, or disrespect of others. However, it's more common that when God sees that a person's heart is too interested in what men respect and approve, having not properly responded to God's prevenient graces to be focused on Him, that God doesn't grace that person with the true faith to begin with. Since the person's heart is fixated